and there it goes off to the cloud and into the hinterlands. This is week 10, because I think I said last week was week 9, and I think that's what it was. No, it's week 11. Okay, human performance technology, which is an area that YaTing knows a bit about, and human performance technology and issues, trends, and history, and concepts and process models. Anything that you know about human performance technology, I think maybe we should start with that, since it's not on the list of questions that I just sent you. And so, starting with something unusual would be good. I'll precursor. I told YaTing I gave a talk yesterday morning to Butler students on informal learning and extreme learning. I gave a talk to Peking University students this morning. So it was yesterday, and then this morning on my research on self-directed learning, 8 studies. And then right after that, I went to the University of North Texas and spoke on the use of video and shared online video as a teaching tool, and the bringing in of guests into classes and stuff like that. So this is the 3rd or 4th things in a row. So we've got Louise Goodman. I don't know who she is. So we may have to kick you out. Louise, are you part of this class or?
No, sorry. Hi,
okay.
Dr. Chris Devers.
That's fine. You can stay.
Okay, yeah, but if you want me to leave, that's right, okay too. My first time signing on.
Totally fine. Because Chris he told me to invite students. I just had a whole bunch of people showing up last week. I didn't know who they were. They were not recognizable names at all. So we've had Zoom bombers I've seen before. So I just wanted to make sure who you were. So great. Thanks for coming in. We're just starting.
I'm not a Zoom bomber. Thank you.
I hope no one here is, I think. Anyways, I was saying I've gave a speech to Butler students today and Peking students this morning, and University of North Texas faculty and staff and students right after that this morning. So I'm a bit exhausted because I was up till 4 a.m. preparing my 5th unique talk in 10 days. So we're going to take tonight how it comes. And YaTing said she's taken care of 2 young ladies, ages 7 and 8. And so I gave her the script, but we're probably not going to follow the script. So we'll see how it goes. I'll say that I met YaTing, it was probably 2005. And YaTing was part of my blended learning research team. Her and Sujing Sun from that's other state, University of Illinois at Champaign. She was a graduate student at the time and joined my research team, along with Eunjung Oh, who's now a faculty at University of Illinois. And a couple other people were on that research team. Jingli Chang, who has the study this week in the week, did I say week 11? In the week 11 article that I wrote with Jingli Chang. So last semester, Jingli and I presented that together on knowledge management. Jingli is also part of our blended learning team, was part of the study on blended learning in China. We have blended learning in UK, blended learning in the US, blended learning in Korea, blended learning in Taiwan, and blended learning in mainland China. It was a 5-part study in the corporate training world. We did that in 2005, 6, 7, and around 2007 and 8, we published some of that. So YaTing was part of that. And then she graduated off she went to, she is like most students do, they want to go to California first before they think about anything after it. And there was a job just sitting there waiting for her at Adobe. And so, or at was it Macromedia still at the time, or was it already Adobe when you went there?
It's already Adobe. I think it's a year after they.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah. So some people I was helping get a job at Macromedia, and then I heard about a few positions that were open at the time, and YaTing got one, and Jingli Chang I think got one as well. So a couple of my mentees went off to California. And so in the corporate training world, she was able to continue to work at Adobe for a long time, even when her husband got a job in DC working for the National Institute of Health. He graduated from Stanford, and they went to the East Coast, and she stayed at Adobe from a distance for a couple of years anyhow. and is now part of the kind of a military hospital in the DC called Uniformed Services University of the Health Sciences. That's a long title, but it really probably is longer than that. And so, and so we'll talk about what she does within that position, because they do have openings from time to time. It is growing. It's a place you might consider down the road, because unlike many places, the military pays you on time, except when the budgets aren't approved by the Congress. But you can. It's pretty reliable. It's pretty reliable working for the U.S. government in the military setting, anyhow. So YaTing, now that you know we're in HPT as the week Human Performance Technology and the corporate training side and all that kind of stuff, I think we'll do a heavy dose of questions about that. But first, can you tell us a bit about why you chose the field of educational technology, which some call learning design and technology today? And what was your undergraduate back in Taiwan? And what was your alternative plan if you didn't get into this major? What would you have done otherwise?
That's a great question. Right. So as Kurt said, I was originally from Taiwan. I get my agricultural extension undergrad degree and a master degree before I come here for my PhD.
Was that National University of Taiwan?
Yeah. So HP.
Right.
Yeah. So he knows my advisor in Taiwan. And agricultural extensions somewhat similar to education, but the scope is a little bit different. The audience is different. We talk to the student that we have. It's usually farmers. We teach them what to grow, when to grow things. So it's somewhat similar with, especially for the theories part. It's applicable to education. So that's why, and Taiwan is a very small country, so we don't have a lot of agriculture. So when I was in senior time, I was struggling finding a job that I can survive to help myself. So then I started looking at education side, and I always love technology. So I always have passion about technology. So I just wanted to know how to use technology to improve teaching and learning. And I've been crazy about technology ever since then. Well, actually long before that. And like over the time, I just love technology more and more. And so that's why I am here. If I didn't go to instructional technology, I'll probably be a developer writing codes. I think that's something I really love to do.
I thought you were going to say Air Force pilot or something, but
No, nothing cool like that. Yeah.
So when she says National University of Taiwan, that's pretty prestigious. She understates it a bit. If you've been to Taiwan and visited any university, you know that every other university is putting Taiwan and the word national in their title to make it seem like they are the National University of Taiwan. So you see all these weird names of universities today, but there's only one National University of Taiwan. There's Taiwan Normal University of, National Normal, all this crazy stuff's going on. Taiwan went from like having 10 different universities 30 years ago to having like 30 different universities within a span of like 10 or 12 years. They were growing universities. And so when students graduated from Indiana or wherever in the States, they went back to high level positions, like it became a dean almost immediately and very high ranking kinds of things. Well, now because of low birth rate, a lot of those universities are consolidating and a lot of people are losing their jobs. And that's why they're changing their name to sound like National Taiwan University. So everyone enrolls there before they know any better. That's my take on it, YaTing. Am I correct?
Yes, that's exactly right. Yeah, I'm also confused with all those names. Yes, yeah.
And it's crazy the how fast it's happening. It's not just Taiwan; it's happening in New Zealand. It's happening in Korea. It's happening in Japan. The don't know if, not in China. They can't build the universities fast enough in mainland China, but it's happening in those particular countries. I don't know about Australia, but along the Pacific Rim, there's low birth rates. Women are now getting to the middle class. They want to have fewer children, and there's less kids than going into a college age and going to university settings. So it's also happening is many of the universities in Korea and in other are trying to attract students from the other Asian countries like China or from the US so that they can maintain a graduate enrollment and their status and their funding, of course. So YaTing, you want to comment on that?
Yeah. So put some numbers there. When I graduated, the college entrance rate is about 25% of high school student can get into a college. My sister, she's 3 years younger than me. And when she applied for college, that was like 60%. And 2 years after, so 3 years, 60%, 2 years after is about 80%, 90%.
Wow.
Yeah. So what they do is they just encourage a lot of like community college become a 4 years college so that they can transform the education system quickly. There are some trade-off, like some people regret about that because we do need those skills that was trained in community college. Anyway.
Yeah, and at the faculty level, everybody in Asia wants to move up in the rankings.
Yes.
So what's happening in Singapore, Korea, in Japan, not as much Japan, but Taiwan, they're having faculty published in the more prestigious journals called Social Science Citation Index, SSCI. And if you get a Social Science Citation Index journal article in Taiwan, you can get a distinguished professor.
Yeah.
Not in the US.
Yeah.
And in China, they've actually created their own CSSCI, Chinese SSCI. And in Korea, you can get a $5,000 bonus for every SSCI article you're first author or single author of. And in China, if you get one, you get tenure. So it's a weird thing. They're making it really hard on faculty, but they're making it really easy to get students in because of the economics and the demographics and all sorts of things. But the games that all universities are playing that move up in rankings, like Indiana, we try and move up in rankings by not letting us require synchronous sessions. We cannot require you to attend these. We can record them and make them optional. We can make watching them optional if they're recorded, then you can, but you cannot, we cannot require you to attend the live sessions. No one can require any students attending a live session, or we lose a check mark in US News and World Reports and we drop down in the rankings, which I find totally ridiculous. But they're saying, well, it's being flexible for learners. Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
we also have a similar requirement for our school as well, because we are serving active duty members.
Right.
And they are everywhere. They got deployed every now here and there. So we wanted to be able to have continuous teaching time for them, learning time for them. So we are only allowed to have 2 synchronous time. We don't even allow anyway, other times should be asynchronous, so people can take it whenever they want. Yeah.
You're allowed 2 synchronous times?
Only 2 synchronous time in one semester.
In one semester, yeah, we're allowed 0 at Indiana. A synchronous required. Now I can have as many synchronous as I want, and it's make an option. That's what we're doing here. Mm-hmm. So tell them, I'm going to jump ahead then. Tell them about the uniformed services of the university and why all of a sudden it's showing up on my radar. I'm getting emails about jobs there and other. Is it a new entity? And yeah. So is it something that just started or not?
This is well, actually, so let me tell you a little bit about our center. So my center is Center for Health Professions Education. So it's basically our students are all health professions educator. So we basically train the trainer. we are a program trainer. Our teachers are nursing faculty, doctors, dental faculty, physical therapist, all kinds of health professions educator. And basically for physicians, everybody could be educator. When they are in senior, when they are in the residency, they start teaching medical students. So right now we even have medical students actually taking our certificate program because they want to have teaching experience. They want to be better students, a better teacher for incoming students. So even medical students are taking, and we will probably start offering MD, MPH, or MD and Master of MA very soon. Yeah, and so starting about 3 years ago, the military is slow for doing this type of distance education, because for military, our main concern is the security. We are very concerned about the security of students' identity, the faculty's identity. So they start very slow. So they start like 3 years ago to thinking about to move different programs online. So again, we want to have continuous learning opportunity for our troops, for our military members. So that's why you start seeing a lot more job announcement from us. So I was hired 3 years ago. EJ was hired about 1.5 years ago. And after him, we have another person comes in like half years ago. So all three of us are in technology, a learning technology domain. Right, so I said, so our students they are all educator. We basically teach them similar thing, but different context. For example, when we teach them about how to use technology in teaching and learning, we talk about when you want to teach student, sorry, I was distracted by the music.
The beautiful music your daughters are playing.
Yeah, so they were, where am I? I was talking about, so we were talking about some specific situation. The context that we are talking about is all about medical context, like the clinical reasoning, for example. How do you teach that? Simulation, a lot of people are interested in online simulation. How do you do that? We are not there yet, like for example doing online simulation, because again, as I said, military is very concerned about technology, so moving everything online, they do it very slowly. Right now we are probably 15 years before, like 15 years ago, where Indiana was, Illinois was. We are very, very slow.
So I've worked with the military. I worked at the Army as a research fellow, and of the sectors of the military, of the branches, the Army is the most ahead. The Navy was doing electronic page turning, just clicking kinds of things. In the Air Force, you hear once in a while about doing immersive worlds, and then you want to check it out and take a look, but then it's talked about 1 minute, and the next minute it's gone. You know, it's like, okay. But the Army tends to have the most thoughtful plans and the most integration. The Army's also working with the National Guard, and they have the Captain's Career Course, which I was involved with doing research on. Trying to ramp up people in the National Guard to be leaders within a 3-year span or a 2-year span, using a blended learning approach back 20 years ago, and doing some high-level tactical maneuver training that really cool, almost too sophisticated, actually. So you hear different things. Some of the military stuff is way ahead of its time, and that's a problem. And other military things are a little bit behind, as you stated there. And so it's a mixed bag, and it depends on what sector. She also mentioned EJ. So EJ, she didn't tell you who EJ is. He's my former student. He was on our research team. on my informal learning research team a decade ago with about 20. I had a research team of 20 people at one point, and I could have brought him in tonight as a second person from there, but I don't think YaTing would have had a chance to talk if he talked. So I want to make sure that we hear from YaTing and get a good female role model. And maybe I can bring Il-ho in at another point. But Il-ho first got a job at Boise State doing instructional design, and then has got to work with the same place as you, the Uniformed Services University of the Health Sciences, doing a joint kind of instructional design plus a teaching role or a faculty role. And your role is more of a faculty role, but you do instructional design as well, I take it. So it's kind of a mixed job, right?
Yeah. So we are not like traditional higher ed type of role. We are not teaching, not learning. I do at least 50% service. So I help other faculty member in medical school to think about how they can bring their instruction online. Especially the past 18 months is a very interesting growth for them, because everybody are pushed to go online. We learn a lot. Just given the limited technology options we have, what can we do for sorry. Yeah, just given the limited technology options we have, how can we help those, how can we help medical school to move online? Yeah, so it was really interesting. And I want to comment one thing. Give me 1 second, Rebecca. So I want to comment one thing that you just said about military. Sometimes they are doing things very advanced, sometimes they are very slow. That's so true. Like for simulation, for example, military simulation, it's amazing. I actually just get a chance to visit one course. It's called Bushmaster for our medical students. So that's basically a 4-day of in-person simulation for our medical students. In that 4 days, they are simulate 3 months of deployment experience. So starting from battlefield, and then after they settle down, the student had experience to having some kind of engagement with local people.
Right, I've seen that.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's such a great design. And then towards the end, something happened. They start having some kind of casualty, mass casualty. So which means like probably within an hour, there are 15 patients comes in, students have to figure out how to triage, how to treat them, how to evacuate them. And then at the end, they get to decide how to evacuate students. There are different ways to evacuate them. Each platoon get 2 chances to evacuate patients through real helicopters. And then most people get to evacuate their patients through the truck. So they have to make a decision anyway. So their simulation is just amazing. Online simulation, not so much. I think during COVID, we use, it's still nice, but they didn't do enough time to have very advanced development. But online simulation, what we did last year is mainly we use Zoom, and then everybody assign a role, and then they practice for example, how to meet with patients, so it's more basic. But that Bushmaster is just such an interesting, nice simulation thing that they are doing. Rebecca, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. That was really interesting to learn about as well. So I just kind of wanted to clarify a couple of things. You said you're teaching, essentially teachers, right? They're going to go teach their students. Now, are they already doctors? Like they're already practitioners?
We have both. We have all. So for us, like I think we have 90% active duty members. So we have really 90% of our students are active active duty members. About 60% of them are MD already. And then we have within that MD, we have like medical students, we have some residents, we have fellows, and we have attendings as well. And we also, a lot of MD in this, a lot of administration group teams, they are also MDs. So we have a lot of MD in our program. And also we have nursing, we have some nursing, we have physical therapists, physical therapist. We also have people from dental college, post college.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. Now, do you even now feel the need to have any type of medical background? I mean, I know you said you had agriculture and then you were really interested in technology, but I feel like, I mean, you have to, right, become like immersed in this medical language and.
Yeah.
Wait. Ms. Ting told me, well, you have to take a speed reading class before you get this job. And you have to have skills as well, you know. Go ahead, Nancy.
Reading poor handwriting, right?
No, yeah, for us in our center, I think it's less of the required to be to have like medical languages. After a while, you kind of the common medical languages keep coming up. But I think if you have that background, it's definitely helps. Because like what we have one faculty, she was a EMT before. And that definitely helps so that she can be more involved in simulation design, construction. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I would think that might be beneficial to, know a little bit about that. But
yeah.
So,
and just one more thing. So the reason I say it's not so much a barrier for our center is mainly because our center director, he actually prefer that kind of diversity in the center. Like we have people from math education and we have 2 people from library science, library information science. So he actually, I think it's probably depends on who the leadership is, but he really liked that kind of blends for different specialties. Yeah.
Okay. And just for my knowledge, because of you said your location, are any of your students like at Walter Reed or in that?
Yeah, we have a lot of students coming from Walter Reed, and we have a lot of because most of our faculty members are in Walter Reed. We also have some faculty member from other MTF, military treatment centers. Military has a lot of acronyms. So like I have to remember, but yes, so we have faculty everywhere, but a lot of them are coming from Walter Reed.
Okay.
And you will hear like lockdown, shelter in place once a while. We had one shelter in place last week. People were reporting but luckily nothing happened so far. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you. That gave me a very good understanding. So I appreciate that.
So the leader she's talking about, he really likes to hear good recommendations, and then he hires the person. I've given 2, and I just, the 2 of my best people, and he says, okay, then she's hired, so he wants to hire good people, and that's better than just hiring for a set skill base. Because if you hire good people, they can learn the skills, right? And diversify and so forth. So, YaTing, you were going to say?
No, I was saying that's so true. And I did find myself like learn a lot in this job, not only the medical side, because medical education, they have very specific, I think, and this is linked back to what Rebecca was saying, because medical side of medical education is a very specific area. So for example, they need to pass MBME test like a lot of times, like there's step 1, step 2, step 3, and then after that they have a lot of like board exam and GME, CME, just so there are a lot of training happening in medical profession. So yeah, so that means there are a lot for us to learn, especially they care a lot about evaluation and assessment too, because they want to make sure the physician that they graduate actually can do the job and they have professionalism. If you are interested in medical education, you can look at AAMC. They usually have some competency-based competency-based defined. So that's something that can get to learn more. Am I seeing you? Hello?
So can you hear me, YaTing? I think you're fading out, or I think your connection is fading out. You might need to reboot in, but maybe it'll come back. There, it came back.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. I wasn't using the right network. Yeah, I was saying if you want to learn more about medical education, the AAMC, they have like they publish a lot of like competency-based curriculum that you can take a look. The top journal in the area is Military Medicine, and there's another one. They publish a lot of like guidelines, like top 12. The paper that
the top 12 medical tips. I just submitted to that journal.
Yeah, it's a really good journal. Yeah, what's the journal called? I can't remember.
A medical teacher, maybe.
Yeah, medical teacher. Yeah, I look a lot, like those tips are so helpful.
Yep.
That and it actually kind of bridge education and the medicine side very well. So it's a really easy read for us who doesn't have a medical background. Yeah.
So Tom Reeves, who was a guest earlier this semester on Authentic Learning, published in there recently on design-based research and other things. My article actually got rejected, not because of quality, just because they said they have a lot of people submitting to it. So we are submitted to one in the UK. It's another medical teacher kind of journal. Medical field has some really good journals. You know, and they got that one's, the medical teachers really, those 12 tips are really, they pack a lot into a short amount of space. It's very, I mean, very up to date and current. So it seems like you hit a good spot, because it took you a while since your graduation. Maybe did you graduate in 2008?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's now 2021, 13, you got this job 3 years ago. So it took 10 years to find this job, but you had Adobe for almost 10 years and that was a good job as well.
Yeah.
We'll want to talk about that as well and what you did there. But it's a couple other things. So if you're a faculty member, are you creating training at night? Are you, when you're teaching classes, are they pre-canned and everything, all the curriculum's pre-made for you?
Well, I'm teaching stats right now. I'm teaching two stat courses. The courses are created by mainly probably 80% of courses are already created by another faculty member in the center. She was in the center when she joined the center like 10 years ago. So she created, and about 20% I help her to enhance the course. But basically we all work together. And
rather than every faculty having their own couple of courses they do, you're all working as a team then. Yeah,
we all work as a team, and no matter how many students we are, we all work together. Yeah.
So is there a competition to get tenure there, or what is the route to something like that?
Well, I am not the best person to answer that, because I didn't to get tenure. I think depends on who you talk to in the center. Somebody is really care about getting tenure. My role, my goal, although getting tenure is, for me, is nice to have. It's not like I have to get tenure because I don't know where I'm going to be 3 years later, 5 years later. So yeah. EJ might be a better person, not because he care about that, just because he is compared to me, he's more he think about that more.
And he's publishing research too, even though he's had a staff role at Boise State. Yeah, so it's a couple points here. You can get an instructional design. You can have get your EDD or your PhD or your master's and get an instructional design position, still do research. The second thing is you can look at a job description and they could still hire. You don't have to apply for only jobs in which you fit perfectly. Because if you have a lot of skills, oftentimes places that are growing will end up having two positions, or will have another one 6 months down the road. And if you've applied for one, they'll have your resume on file when something else comes up. And so it's really useful to try, at least try, and you learn from that. And I've seen in my career 3 or 4 times where they hired 2 people instead of 1 because they liked 2 people so much, and they had the funds that were available. It's less and less likely given the budgetary constraints of today, but because of the society changing in so fast in so many ways, the field of instructional design, the field of learning design and technology is growing so fast. So if anyone has an opening, you just throw in your resume and see what happens. If you have 25% of what they are looking for, 30 or 40%, go ahead. Even if you're missing 60%, that 40 is going to be enough to at least get your foot in the door and have them look at your resume. And you just never know that some searches go blank. They just can't find the right person. Sometimes the search gets delayed. And so they have to pick back up with applicants maybe 6 months later, and other people have found jobs. And then lo and behold, you'll show up at the top of the pool 6 months later. So you just don't know. There's so many variables in this. You think it's a 1-to-1 match. It's got to be perfectly a match. They'll hire me in 3 weeks and I'll go through. It doesn't happen like that. YaTing, it took her like 6 months to get her some kind of visa approved, right? Or you had a job waiting, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. During that, when I was at Adobe, yeah.
Yeah. So you had a different job. The State Department wanted to hire you, right? And it was like, it took a year for the State Department. And by the time they did, this new job came available, right?
2 or 3 years, actually.
How many?
2 years or 3 years, I
wow.
think. Yeah. Anyway, I was waiting for clearance, background clearance. And after I passed the background clearance, I'm sorry, give me 1 second.
She's got spies right around her. They're 2 little 7 and 8-year-old spies, and she got to get clearance for them.
Yeah. So after I get clearance, they said, "I'm sorry, the budget got cut." And then after I start, I don't think I told you about this, Kurt. So after I accept my current job, they come back to me, ask if I'm still available. The opening, they are like they have budget right now. I just start a new one, so maybe we'll see. Yeah.
So it's a lot of. Go ahead.
No, I just want to mention one thing would be interesting to know is actually between Adobe and my current job. Although in between, I was waiting for State Department. They already hired me. They were doing background clearance forever. And then during this time, I actually went to NIH to do a volunteer job to get some medical background. Just medical education background. I was helping them doing needs assessment for faculty development for their fellowship program. So I think that definitely helps.
So R511 and R521, those courses come in handy. You just never know when those jobs pop up like this. And she went NIH. Her husband works at NIH. Many people who've graduated from IU have worked at NIH or family members have worked at NIH. It's a big organization and getting bigger. They're getting more funding actually.
Yeah.
So, so the federal government's allocating more funds, at least. So at the federal level, there's going to be jobs in the future. At the corporate level, is definitely jobs. At the higher level, universities that used to have one job for the, like a large, like University of Oklahoma, maybe 20, 30 years ago, to have one instructional designer, today would have 15. It's grown that online learning, blended learning, all that's grown that much. So what skills do you need, or what's a typical day in a life like for you? And what skills are you using? Is project management, media development, e-learning? What is it?
Well, for research side, I think my specialty is quantitative research methodology. So in terms of research, I'm still using my stats a lot here and there. That's the main part. In terms of like instructional technology, the skill is very easy. However, you do need to have a very strong project management skill. And I get that mainly when I was at Adobe, I learned a lot from the project manager to know how to do that. Also, I'm doing a lot of evaluation right now as well. And I also learn a lot of evaluation when I was at Adobe, and also interview skills, because in corporate, they usually want you to master not only one type of research methodology, they want both. They want you to be able to based on the research question that you are interested in, find out a best way to get the answer. So they want you to have both.
So here's the thing. Sorry, you were going to say something else? Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, doesn't matter.
Okay, so if there's a hole in your program of studies and you need one more class, I always, or Dr. Brush as well, always recommend adding an inquiry or statistics class, because it's generic and it doesn't matter what job you have. It'll come in handy wherever you are. It can't hurt. And if you prefer qualitative, then take an extra qualitative. If you prefer quantitative, take an extra quantitative. If you're not really sure, then you might take something that's kind of a mix of the two, like what we have is R511, which you all have to take, or 520, which is strategies for educational inquiry. But there are other such kind of big picture, not kind of inquiry courses. Like systemic reviews of the research or meta-analysis of the research is a really hot thing now that people want to know about. In the quantitative side, they want to do structural equation modeling, which I'm heavily, you wouldn't believe, YaTing, I think I've got 8 studies on SEM, and I'm not the expert, and another one of my former students is. So I'm getting really quantitative all of a sudden. And I started my career quantitative, then I went qualitative, and I'm back. I'm doing mixed methods, but really more quantitative lately. It's kind of funny. And quantitative, you can get published faster, typically.
Yeah.
So are you utilizing e-learning or blended learning pedagogy at all in your job?
What I'm using, so I do a lot of consultation for medical school faculty, and they usually come with, if I want to do this, how can I do it? And you will be surprised how many of them actually really have no idea. So most of my blended learning pedagogy are used there. I try to figure out what kind of course that they are teaching, how many students, what's the context, what kind of interaction they want to have. And I'm helping them think about if they want to reach this, how they can do it online, because a lot of time they still, and right now actually we are not doing 100% online, we are doing high flex. So I'm actually helping them to know how to manage 2 types of students in the course. So so those are the times I use my blended learning. pedagogy the most. Also, I'm also another course I'm working on. So you mentioned the service part. I'm designing a course. I'm working with a physician to design a course, a very senior physician who's been in military medicine for years. We are working together to design a course for HPSP student, which are they are civilian medical school students, but they get the funding from DoD, from Department of Defense. So when they graduate, they don't have debt, but they have to pay back through their services. So we are designed, however, those students, for USU student, they get a lot of like military medicine type of training. For example, when there's a mass casualty in some kind of rural area with limited resources, how can you treat patients? The civilian school, they don't have that. They feel, usually we talk to a lot of HPSP students, usually they come in with, they feel lost, they feel very isolated, they don't speak the language. Medical school language is one thing. Military medical language is another thing. There are a lot of acronyms in their day-to-day conversation. So we are helping them to feel less isolated, to having that kind of bridge, to bridge the civilian medical school to the battleground, to hopefully that would influence their willingness to stay after their service time is up. Because we lost a lot of HPSP students after their service time is up, and we don't want that happen. Yeah.
What does that stand for, HPS?
Oh, sorry, HPSP, some kind of scholarships. One of the S is scholarship, health.
Okay, health professions, a scholarship, or program scholarships or something like that.
Yeah, it's basically, yeah. A lot of students, they decide to go with HPSP because the DoD is actually very generous. They pay for tuition, they pay for the books, they actually got stipend as well. So a lot of people, yeah, they ended up decide to go to get the HPSP get into the HPSP program and go to the medical school they want. But it's a very tough, after I talked to many students, it's a very tough transition from civilian school to the military treatment, military hospitals.
So I want to open up the questions from everyone, but before I do that, my last question at this point, I have others, but is what day in the life of you at Adobe? What were the skills that you needed, and what was the job title? And what was your, and as part of that, what was your proudest accomplishment at Adobe?
So my title is education researcher. So the education part who is the learner? A lot of time people are confused about, when I was at Adobe, where's the education part? So our customers are our students. So we basically teach the customer how to use the products better, so they will stay in the company, keep using the software. So we care, actually, there are so many things that I learned from Adobe. It's mainly not very specific skill, but the mindset, the corporate mindset. Everything is very practical. When you design something, you want to make sure the design, or when you do a research, you want to make sure the research question connect with the method, with the results and action, not only results, but also action. So for example, if you find out A, what would you do? You probably have that kind of connection already planned out even before you have the results. So it's more of a mindset development, and still very helpful, I think, to me.
So you were researcher on a team of researchers, or by yourself?
No, on a team. So we have, so Diana Joseph, she's the manager. And then
Right.
we have another 2 people, and we constantly having the interns comes in to the group during that time. And we are doing different type of research using different type of, so in Adobe, data is not a problem. We have lots of data, but you need to find a best, so that's another thing why I said qualitative and quantitative are both very important, because we have a lot of data, we have a lot of way to collect data, and people are willing to talk to us. But how to pick and choose, find the best way to support the results that you find, that's actually requires some skill. And a lot of time when people comes to you, so we don't just come up research question, usually some research question come up by our customer who are writers, instructional designers in the team, and they come up question. A lot of time they tell you they want to study this, but they actually, after you probe some question, figuring out what's the bottom line question that they are interested in, what kind of thing that what kind of decision they are trying to make, you will figure out they probably wanted to ask another question. So when I was at Adobe, I do a lot of that kind of research consultation, trying to figure out what's the question that you are really interested in. How can I find a better tool to help you answer the question? So
in that case at Adobe, it's more researcher role, and in the case of your current job, both research and teaching, almost like in a teaching and learning center, like the instructional consulting office here at IU. The faculty come to with advice on how to put their courses online and all that kind of thing. But you have a unique role in that you are treated like a faculty member, not as a staff. Yes. You're treated with a little more higher level respect than a traditional instructional designer, I think. Yeah. And that's got to be a good feeling, actually, because you're doing something that is very important, that oftentimes in many organizations is lower on the totem pole and is stuck in a little strange office somewhere. You're front and center and everyone's really relying on you. So you have a true purpose there. A dual purpose to get people to understand research and research methods, but also to ramp up their courses and be able to teach in pedagogically engaging ways. Did I say that correctly?
That's exactly right. Yeah. And I think the design is on purpose. It's not just happen to be this way. They actually feel like, especially talking to physicians, if you are a faculty member, the communication is more effective than you are a staff or as a staff or a master. So I think they actually designed this way on purpose.
So I think Amita has a question because she's typing something into me right now, and she didn't get to ask a question last time. Amita is from Uzbekistan, is in our EDD program, and is a frequent guest in my classes, presenting and listening both. Always does exemplary work. Amita, would you like to jump in here?
Hi, yes, I have a question about HyFlex training. I wonder, first of all, how do you learn your faculty needs, what their biggest challenges are, and how you're supporting faculty in teaching in HyFlex format? And I'm sorry, my internet is not stable. If I cut off, I'm sorry, I will watch recording. Thank you.
Yeah.
No, yeah, HyFlex. So another thing I learned, so just quick mention. So another thing I learned from Adobe is the communication skill. So I try to make things really simple and communicate that with the faculty member. What I usually tell faculty members are, if you are an online teacher, you have to juggle 3 or 4 different roles. But if you are HyFlex, it's basically more than double.
Yes.
So I usually tell them, get help if you can. If you cannot, use your students. Try to, especially like you probably already can tell I'm not a very good multitasking person, not like Kurt. I'm really not very good. So I can only focus on one thing at a time. So I usually try to minimize multitasking as much as possible. I tell them the same thing. And I also tell them just use one tool. I tell them to use Poll Everywhere because it actually support in-person and support online students all at the same time. So usually they are still, for medical student, they are teaching undergraduate medical students, they are still doing didactic and probably for like 15 to 20 minutes, and then they have an activity, another 15 to 20 minutes, they have another activity. So those activity time, we use Poll Everywhere to fill so that everybody can be, can participate. Another thing I tell them is make sure when you prepare some kind of activity, if though, especially when the beginning of the semester, just make sure you have different level of engagement planned out. So for some students, they like to talk, they like to express what they want, they can involve more. For those students, they usually tended to shy away. Just design something very simple they can just click so that you at least bring everybody together. So I tended to simplify stuff, and sometimes I simplify too much, but that's how I communicate. Yeah.
I see. Thank you.
So Louise is going to jump in here with a question. Louise.
Hi, thank you for having me and for my question. I learned so much from your presentation. You brought forth a lot of new information for me, so thank you for that. I wanted to follow up on the idea of essential skills and maybe ask you what things in your portfolio you feel like you were able to build up and you would recommend other people have in their portfolio that kind of let them jump from different kinds of a position, like from Adobe to a faculty position in the medical field.
What's your background?
I do a master's in education technology program at Johns Hopkins, but right now I'm a secondary education teacher, and I was kind of interested in your talk because I knew you had some language skills, and I also kind of come from an international language background, so I'm kind of interested in applying them in a DC State Department. I've done a couple of State Department internships, something in that realm. And I kind of always think about what portfolio is interesting for that.
So Louise, if you're with Johns Hopkins, are you in the Baltimore area or in the DC?
No, I used to live in DC and now I live in Hilton Head, South Carolina. But because I had known people who had done this program where I used to live, word of mouth recommendation.
Right. Okay. Her professor, Chris Devers, sometimes sits in this class. He lives in Indiana, north of Indianapolis, and is a good friend. So, yeah, I told him he could invite any of his students who want to sit in here. I spoke to Johns Hopkins faculty in engineering a couple of years ago and got a chance to see the campus. And it's a great place, you know. It's really, it's got many strengths there. So, YaTing, you have any advices for her?
Yeah, I feel like for me, I think my problem is I have too many different type of skills because for me, I from Adobe to NIH to my current job, I just acquire different type of skill and it's too broad. So for me, my problem is I need to think about what's the thing that I get excited the most. And that's actually the most difficult thing for me. In terms of like State Department, I continuously saw them like looking for evaluation people. So if you have instructional technology, that's great. You have teaching experience, that's great. Another thing would be like evaluation assessment. They do the 4 level. It's
Kirkpatrick.
Yeah, they use Kirkpatrick a lot. Yeah. So just having that, especially the State Department, offer me the job is the what do they call the international language, yeah, that institute. So I know they are constantly looking for evaluator. Yeah.
So IU Students 61 is a course that can get you a job, as opposed to the fluffy theoretical kind of courses that I would teach. You know, some you have to take something more practical in mind. That's 561. There are other ones. This one is kind of course. It's a basic course. This course is, but it serves a diverse set of purposes. Any other questions from people in here? We have heard from one Uzbekistan. Is it called Uzbek person or someone from Uzbekistan, or either one? So Donoza?
Is okay. Uzbek person or
Uzbek,
someone from
Uzbek.
Uzbekistan.
So we heard from one Uzbek. How about the second Uzbek?
Yes. Well, I don't have a specific question. I really, first of all, want to say that I enjoyed being here, like listening to your story of how you entered the field and what type of jobs you have been doing and what you learned from those like responsibilities that you had throughout your career. Maybe my question will be, like I'm at this stage of like I'm working on research in like entering to the intense research step of my doctoral program. So maybe what would be your advice for students like me? What to do to stay on track of the work and keep the stuff done on time? So how do you manage your time? Maybe that's my question.
Yeah, and I guess I'm on our committee, and so I'll add to that and just say, how do you find time forming research questions as a graduate student, and how do you know when you've formed the proper research question and you should go with it? Yeah. So I think that's partly what she wants to ask. So yeah.
So I'm actually another course that I'm co-teach right now. Again, like we are always a team. So we have another course that we have like 7 and 8 faculty member in the course, which is called a research bootcamp course. And we basically, it's probably, you probably have similar setup at IU. You have the basic research methodology course. And then after that, you start writing the paragraph and use those to start thinking about your first 3 chapters, how you wanted to do it. But recently, after I joined USES, one thing I found it very helpful is to start by, first of all, of course, you want to have a topic that you are passionate about. You really wanted to do something that you are really curious what the result would be. Another thing is to start think about problem gap hook, what kind of problem you are trying to figure out, what's the gap from the research, from the field, and why people should care about the results. Yeah, so just start, I would say start from there, and then use your committee members. They are great resources. So use them and write down every milestone on your calendar so you can help you keep track. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your ideas.
Anyone else want to jump in here? We've got a few people we haven't heard from. But we've gone for about an hour now since we started the recording. So I promised an hour. We can go a few minutes over. Nelson, did you want to ask something or?
Yeah, I was just kind of curious, like the process of working for so long and then kind of switching to faculty, I think. Um, did you ever feel like there were some things you were not really prepared to transition from working at Adobe to kind of doing more faculty related things? Or did you feel that you're really prepared to make that jump, make that switch?
No, I don't feel any like barrier when I do that kind of switch. The hardest switch is actually military. So even though the school is probably, the military people would say the school is not very military-like, but I still feel like it's, the hardest thing is actually from Adobe to military, the corporate culture versus the military culture. Corporate is very, it encourage everybody, if you have a question, talk to somebody, talk to the person that who may have some clue about the question you have. You directly email the person, even though they are in another department. You can email them anytime. If they feel like they are not the right person, they will guide you to the right person to answer your question or help you find the answer. Military is definitely not like that. Military is very, the chain of command, the politics is a lot more in military, unfortunately. But well, I guess sometimes politics is everywhere. It's just more or less. So I think that's something I'm not like, it's not like I'm trying to get used to, but it's definitely something that I feel like it cultivates my communication skill. So I just keep looking at the bright side. But that's definitely the hardest thing. And corporate, they are usually very generous. If you want to travel, they give you a corporate credit card, you just do the credit card. Military and faculty and federal government is not that liberal. They want you to keep everything on track, keep every single receipt so that you can write off the expense. But that's the biggest change. I found it, I still found it amazing.
Thank you so much. That's really informative of the different experiences that they bring. I'm glad that you were able to share these with us. Thank you.
I'm glad, thank you.
You still haven't told me what your most impactful thing that you did. In particular, I'm thinking of Adobe because you spent more time there. And I guess as part of that, could you give us an example of a client research question that you had to do a study and provide a substantive kind of report on? What kind of research questions were you solving or addressing at Adobe? And you know, could you give us an example of one where it really made an impact, or and got you excited that having done that research and be able to respond to a client in that way, or a user group, or whatever?
Yeah, let me answer the most impactful. I need some time to think about that. So it was a long time ago, more than 10, yeah, anyway, it was a long time ago. I think the most impactful is, so the team is a content team. So they care about whether the content is helpful to the customer or not. Is it helping them? What are they trying? So our customer, we have the contact through the website, right? So we didn't get a chance to really talk to them most of the time. We do have some project like that. We have to talk to, we have to interview the customers, but most of the time we don't have, we didn't get a chance to talk to customers. So we have to use different resources to try to guess what they are trying to do and whether the content is good or not. So the biggest question back then is, how can we know whether the content is high quality or not? So we struggle a lot. We were trying, before we decide on the one that we settled down, we try like product satisfaction, we try different satisfaction factors, we try the I use a lot of Nielsen's user experience surveys, those type of questions to try to figure out are those good indicator to help us understand the quality of the online content. And we ended up throw everything away. So we used to have like 60 questions in our online survey. We ended up throw everything away, and right now we only have one thing, and that thing is still on Adobe's website, is whether the content is good or not. It's just a thumbs up, thumbs down. So back then, when I talked to Diana, I tell her like, I think the main reason that the numbers that we have, why it is not, why we cannot answer those the changes, the trend, is mainly because it's not context specific. So if you have a context specific major, when there is a change, when you are trying to answer why the number goes up, why the numbers goes down, it will be a lot easier. So we ended up using that specific specific major for each piece of content. And it's very simple, just thumbs up, thumbs down. It's easier to talk to the people higher up, the CEO, CTO, whatever. And then we use that with the just comment box, because we found the comment box is actually the easiest. So that's something that I actually carry over right now, although I'm still working on that, because people in academia, they just love to have tons and tons of questions and tons of answers that they collect from their respondents, and they never use it. But that's something I'm still working on. But that's the biggest, I think the most impactful thing that I've done at Adobe. In terms of like research question, I can give you one very simple one. We also use a lot of web analytics. So I get to learn a lot of web analytics when I was at Adobe. So so for example, Captivate team, right now, one time they reach us trying to help us to, they want us to help them understand what type of content are required in 10 minutes for new Captivate students. So if people doesn't know Captivate is basically a e-learning tools that you can design for self-directed learning. So what we did is we go to our website and trying to see what's the most common visit pages, and trying to understand why people come to that page. So you can and you can get a lot of answer from the forums as well. So we just trying to figure out what's the top content in every different channels that we have, and we prioritize those for them. So you basically do a lot of prioritization, trying to help them to decide how to allocate their resources in the most efficient way.
So we got one final question from Pai Shen, who's originally from Taiwan, like you. So you can both speak in Mandarin if you want to. Right. Melissa, who's an expert at languages, can probably be the only one who understands Mandarin. Is that right, Melissa? Do you know Chinese?
I actually don't.
Well, what languages do you know?
I know Spanish, Azerbaijani, and some Russian.
That's more than I know and probably will ever know. Maybe I'll have to, you give me a goal. Thank you for the goal. Melissa, did you have a quick question before we go to Pai Shen to finish us off tonight? Do you have a comment or a question?
I actually don't. I just want to thank you so much. It's been really informative learning from you and the different areas that you've worked in and the challenges that you face. So thank you so much.
You are very welcome.
Pai Shen? And tell YaTing where you got your undergraduate degree or your master's at.
Hi, Dr. Teng. I'm Pai Shen, and I'm also from Taiwan. And before going to IST, I was an assistant at National Taiwan University, and yes, and I worked at Center for Teaching and Learning Development. Yes. So just as I mentioned in the chat that I am an international student, and in the future, maybe I want to work as an instruction designer in the corporates in the United States. And I know you was an international student before, and you have a lot of experience in the industry. So my question is, if in the future I want to work as an instruction designer, what skills or abilities would you suggest that we can learn or accumulate at school?
In terms of the skills?
Yes,
The,
or some abilities or some attitudes.
the skills. I guess if you want to be instructional designer instead of a researcher, then you want to try to have as many technology skills as possible, because it's always nice to know at least one language, just as a backup. Yeah. And then if you can try to get some internship for different content area that you are interested in. So I was intern for Adobe. Right now I'm in medical education, and actually during the time when I was before I worked for Adobe, I had a chance to be to work for our medical school as well at Illinois. So there are a lot of opportunity at the school that you might be able to acquire the content knowledge. So if you want to do a instructional design for lawyers, you might be able to just find a job at the law school to see if they need instructional design work, and that will get you start. I think medical is a really it's a content area that's very hard to get in. So if you can get some medical education background, that would be good. Law school is another hard one. Accountant is another hard one too. There are a lot of hard ones that you can just expand your knowledge area, the content areas that you can experience, and then technology. Yeah.
Okay, so sorry, so the technology you mentioned is like programming, something like that?
I would say, like, for example, Storyline, Captivate, those are the must. And if you can know at least one development like language, that's nice to have, like Java. If you can learn a little bit, at least a little bit, that would be really nice to have, so that you have the ability to design some interactions.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
And when you said language earlier, I was thinking was Spanish, Italian. No, you meant computer language or development language.
Yeah.
You said language. It's kind of funny that society has grown in such a way that language really, people understood what you meant, but 20 years ago or 10 years ago, they wouldn't have, and it's because computer language has become so important and so pervasive in coding camps and hackathons and in some kind of apprenticeship programs. So Paishong, there is a program in informatics where you can get an internship. I have the name of it on my computer. If you write me an email, I'll give you the form to fill out to get an internship. Maybe Donoza knows the name of the place. No. So there is an organization that handles these internships. It's got a strange name. I'm just blanking on it right now. Actually, it might be on this laptop. I might be able to look it up while we're chatting away here and saying goodbye to YaTing. But I really want to thank my friend and my colleague and my mentee at one point for coming in here and impressing us totally and providing us a break from listening to people who are have worked in for 50 years and are retired. We're hearing from someone who's actually, still discovering new things and new opportunities and on different initiatives and programs. So you're in the trenches, not just reflecting on the old days. So that's also refreshing. We did have Anita Vrossin a few weeks ago from Baylor Medical School. Or Baylor College of Medicine. So she had a similar ideas and similar suggestions. So if you like this one, but you didn't watch Anita, watch Anita's and compare it to this one, or maybe one of your final assignments when you're looking for themes in some of these recordings. Those would be the two you would put together. And also Rachel Kubrick from 2U. I'd say the three of them are talking about instructional designer roles. Kendam Gaibak from Bhutan, she was more about international issues in Bhutan, Papua New Guinea, and Nepal. So she would also maybe be a fourth one, but definitely the three: Anita, YaTing, and Rachel. I put those three together. And we'll have Merve Bazdigan, my research assistant, my TA, just graduated as the last. We'll talk about jobs in the field, but then I'm going to have her talk about her early career. She's got a postdoc at IU, having just graduated a few months ago with her PhD. So we're going to do a career analysis or kind of evaluate, kind of like YaTing, but that will be on Sunday, November 14th at 11 in the morning. On next week, on Monday night, 7 p.m. Eastern time, 6 o'clock in Chicago, if you're at ACT like me, we'll have a famous person, Allison Rosett from San Diego State University, a big corporate training HRD person with us at 7 p.m. again. And so I welcome you to come back in. I'm going to be in my hotel room, and I'm not going to lecture after. But I will do this. I will have talking to people about their blog posts. So bring your blog, if you're blogging every week on the reflections, on the readings. We haven't talked much about your blog posts. So I'm going to have people after that for just about 20 minutes, half hour, just sharing what they're doing in their blogs and asking me questions from their blogs. Kind of like ask me anything kind of a session. So we'll have Allison Rosett at 7, and then at 8, me for about a half hour or so. Just it'd be good to reflect on your blog posts, and we might do that the following week as well. So I haven't been responding to your blogs. Life has been a little crazy, but hopefully Dono's has been giving you feedback, and Renee has been giving you feedback on them, and I'll try and jump in as well. So let's give her a round of applause and a big thank you. So I appreciate you coming in. And
no problem. Yeah, this is really fun. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I miss chatting with you and all my friends in DC, and I hope soon. I have many students in the DC area, and I hope I can visit my sisters in DC as well, and my brother-in-law. So I need to get. I love DC. So if you're thinking about a job in the future, you have to think about Washington DC, because there's lots of opportunities. It's a beautiful city. Just the right temperature most of the time.
Yes.
And so we're going to take about a 10-minute break. I'll come back and talk about my study with Jingli Chang on knowledge management, but I'm not going to cover it cover to cover. I'm going to hit bits and pieces because I've been speaking twice this morning, and I was exhausted after 5 minutes, and I gave a 2 hour and then a 1 hour. So my body won't go for too much longer. So again, YaTing, thank you very much. And I am going to stop the recording at this point. If I can find it. Last word, YaTing, say the last word. Just say last word. There you go. I stopped the recording.